Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Developing Dads podcast. I actually started this episode just before when I hit record. Neil was chomping and chewing whatever he's eating just now, and I don't know if anyone out there has an eating fetish and wants to listen to Neil chewing his way through a crumpet or whatever thing that he's decided to eat during this podcast. I mean, I don't know if you're like anybody else, then it kind of it freaks me out a little bit. It's one of those things where I don't think if Laura was a noisy eater or ate with her mouth open, I think I'd probably...
Yeah, it does get on my nerves as well. But I'm eating an oat cookie that's been freshly baked. It's delightful.
Did you freshly bake it, Neil?
I didn't wear a penny. But I did freshly bake it.
Oh, you're such a modern dad, Neil. You know, you take Fridays off. You know, this
did a food shop this morning, baked some cookies.
And my goodness, you'd be cleaning the toilet. You'd be cleaning the bathroom.
It's on the list
after this, wouldn't you? It's on the list. There we go. I think Laura would probably rather marry you than me, because I don't do any of those things.
You're traditional.
Anyway, welcome to episode number 87 of the Developing Dads podcast. Today we're going to run through basically some of the things or pieces of content that we really enjoy, maybe make some recommendations. So any developing dads out there who want to follow some learned things versus just even entertainment stuff, we're going to share some of the thoughts and feelings on various platforms like YouTube, books, authors, Instagram, other stuff that we might have considered or thought about or we regularly consume, I think is what I'm trying to say. Either way, on the Developing Dads podcast, this is a catch-up call or catch-up chat. It's basically like a nice sounding Zoom call, isn't it, Neil?
And it's got to be an hour.
FaceTime where it's an hour long and we record it with nice microphones and whatever else. But either way, it is partly, it allows us, my phone's going off, sorry. It allows us to be able to catch up once a week. So we get to say hello, see what we've been up to, how we've been feeling, any thoughts. Neil's had some big things this week. I've seen an emotional post put out there on Instagram, I think it was, or Facebook, or wherever you talk about crap, Neil. But either way, we do catch up. So, Neil, how are you? And
I'm good. Yeah, it's been back at work. I've been off last week, so yeah, getting back into the swing of things with work. And yeah, as Gordon touched on, it's a bloody big week. So Ben and Lewis, if you're a new listener, I've got 3 kids: Ben, Lewis, and Isla. Isla's P4. And the boys, Ben and Lewis, have just started P1, which, yeah, when I think about it, it's just bonkers that now I've got all my kids are now in school, away 9 or 8:45 till 3:15 every single day. Yeah, it's just a bit bizarre. So very excited for them. There's no kind of nerves on the day. They kind of embraced it, ran in like you'd expect a happy kid to run in. And yeah, they looked very smart in their shirts and their ties. I got a bit emotional, as did Rebecca, as did every other granny, grandparent, mum and dad, watching all their kids go in. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's one of those moments of a new chapter. It's like a big new chapter for them. And yeah, and Isla has now started P4, which is kind of much the same, but a bit more structured, I think, in terms of learning and tests and stuff. And she didn't want to go to school today, and she kind of kicked up a fuss this morning about not going to school, blah blah. It's like day 3 after the summer holidays, and it turns out she's got a spelling test, and she doesn't like spelling. So yeah, these are the things that they've just got to embrace and get through. But
so are you in dad mode? You're like,
yeah,
your trousers up,
get in,
right? Shoulders back,
do your best,
chest proud. Off you go. Yeah, right. This is life. You're kind of you're the crow in the nest, kicking their chicks out of the thing. Off you go and fly. We'll see what happens.
So yeah, it's exciting. Apart from that, it's been a pretty standard week. Nothing else. Just getting them ready for school. They've come back every day knackered, so just early nights. Yeah.
So what you're saying is it's great because you get free babysitting and they actually go to sleep.
And I think they're getting a lot more independence, and it feels like, especially Ben, he seems to, I don't know, he's changed just overnight from going to school, which is quite nice to see. It's almost like it's gone from being a kind of toddler, young person to being a bit more mature, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just my perspective, but yeah. Anyway,
do you think that comes from, when I use that bird analogy? Do you think there's there's a bit of that where it's like, because change comes internally. People don't necessarily they'll change to some degree from external factors and stuff that happens to them and all that kind of thing, or being told that they should change or whatever else. But it fundamentally comes from within, and maybe there's a conscious realization in his mind. He's like, well, mum and dad aren't here. Who else is gonna? Who else is gonna defend me or gonna support me or whatever else? I've got to try and do something about it. Maybe it's subconscious. Maybe there's something.
Yeah, I think you're right
about that. I don't know. Maybe
but it's also nice that. So when Isla went to school, she had no siblings in that school. But when the boys have gone, they've got Isla in the playground at lunchtimes and at break times. And Isla's friends, they know quite well from just them coming over. So they've already got a bit of a network, and they're already mixing with P4 or P5-year-olds, which, again, will just kind of add a bit more confidence to them, I think. So yeah, that's my week.
Bit of complexity as well, right? Because it's the way that we behave around grandparents is slightly different than the way we behave around our mates versus how we behave around children, right? So they then start to realize there's a social structure, there's a class structure, there's an age structure, there's all those kind of things. But I guess they went to nursery, didn't they? So there'd be some of that as well. True. Already.
Anyway, that's my week, just full of emotions and...
That's it. That's
yeah, I mean, we caught up on Sunday, so it's not like we've had a weekend to go nuts in. That's it. How about you? What have you been up to?
I mean, I'm berating you slightly, given that that's the only highlight in the entire calendar. But I've done absolutely nothing else. I don't know how it's Friday. How do these things happen? It used to take 14 years when I was about 6 or 7 to drive to Edinburgh, right? Or it's certainly what it felt like. And now, being a 36-year-old man, I feel like it now takes 2 minutes to finish a day. It's 10 o'clock already. What? I know. So, I don't know. I'm getting into golf.
Yeah, you mentioned
a
that last podcast. You've been again since.
Yeah, played on Wednesday night. Nice little nine holer. It's a funny game because it's quite complex in the sense that it's just you hit and stick on a ball, and you've got to swing it in a certain way in a direction, and there's lots of coordination of limbs and movement and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not bad at. I played quite a lot of sport over the years, but it's amazing how your mind totally fucks with you. If I hit a good, not with you, but just me, I think is some reflections is if I hit a good drive or I hit a good shot, it feels great. I'm going to the British Open. It's amazing. I'm really enjoying myself. However, when I don't hit a good shot, it feels horrific. And it's I'm shit. This is terrible. I don't want to do this. This is horrible. Why am I doing it? But yeah, what's the point? All of that. But the thing that I'm kind of reflecting on is that it's just life is too easy when you do stuff you're good at.
For sure.
It's too easy. And the things that I benefit from going to play golf is I go for a walk, which is, inherently good. It's good for us to move around and do stuff. It's good to challenge myself in that when I don't hit a good shot, how do I analyze it? How do I think about it? How do I go into the next one and be like, look, okay, let's just settle back into it, see what I can do for the next shot and see what I can hit. To hanging out with a friend of mine, Harry. He's such a nice guy. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. And to have nice, personal, slightly deep and intimate conversations about stuff, while walking around hitting a ball, it's a great mental health walk. And especially when it's at sunset, it's kind of quite a romantic journey. And it's really nice, and there's a community around golf in the sense that, everyone's quite friendly and they all say hello when you're kind of walking around the course, or they're very polite. There's lots of etiquette going on. You have a beer afterwards. And I mean, it's definitely costing me money though, because I lost in 9 holes. I probably lost about 4 or 5 balls, and the
okay.
Just
And
under
then
a
how
pound.
much did it cost to play a round?
About 15
20
quid
down.
Exactly. I mean, it's cheaper than a therapy session, so it kind of. But you know, the better you get, the less balls you lose, and the less money that goes down the drain. So a bit of that. I haven't bought a set of clubs yet. I'm borrowing my father-in-law's David's. So, and I don't quite have the accurate gear to be wearing. Like, I got told off because I was wearing a t-shirt, and I should have been wearing a polo shirt. You know, because there's a bit of that kind of snooty shit goes on. But you know, I'll accept it. So I did that on Wednesday night, and that was really good fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's just a nice thing to do. And I think the other one is just kind of, I think over the past few months I've been realizing that the more clear my diary is, some of it I'm a bit lazy with, and I'm just kind of not lazy, but I'm just kind of not working particularly hard. Like, I'm not, you know, pushing myself and doing whatnot. But I've realized how much it gives you just a lot of, like, it's nice to not be in meetings. You know, it's nice to just be able to have a day where you're like, I've got nothing else to do. And that is nice. Like, there's a niceness about that. I don't know why. So this week I've had very little calls on stuff, which has been good. Most of my week has been very free of that. I did have a meeting yesterday. There's a guy that works at the gym that Laura goes to called T2 Fit. His name's Luke. And he's kind of like pursuing YouTube stuff for the business and expanding and whatnot. And it's been, you know, it's really good to work with him because he's got a similar kind of drive and attitude. He's quite young. And it's just fun because it's kind of, I'm spewing all this stuff about YouTube and how can he improve things. And yesterday was kind of like a good meeting to do that. I'm working tomorrow. I've got a photo shoot filming thing, but that's for the client that I like, so it's good. And then next week's my first mentoring event that I've ever run, which is going to be pretty cool. So it's going to be a day. I've hired the T2 Fit gym, so we're going to go down there, film content, like show people how to film content, do some presentation stuff over 3 hours, and then we're going to come around to mine. Going to stick the big green egg on, do a couple of picanhas, do some food. Break bread, as they say, and then just do that, which will be quite. I think it'll be quite fun. Good. And then that's pretty much my week. I think a couple of friends are staying at the weekend, and that's it. Oh, we booked a holiday.
Dubai one.
That's an update. Yeah, so we booked it last night. Dropped a small house deposit on trying to fly.
Flights have gone mad expensive,
but. Yeah, to be honest though, like it's a
Olivia
good
an adult
flight
on a flight,
and it was, I think she does. You have to pay for her, yeah. So it's like, I think it was £1,400 for the 3 of us to fly out there. So is that a lot?
Divide by 3.
You know, if you think it's like 400, just over £400 each, like to fly all the way to Dubai. I don't think that's that much. Yeah, and in peak as well. It's kind of November. End of November, sort of start of December, so the average temperatures are like 18 to 30 degrees, which is like perfect. Yeah. There's no rain, nothing, no clouds, so it's going to be nice. And then we're getting to go out and see some really good friends of ours who've just moved out there, which again is just going to be equally as nice because we've been to Dubai, and Dubai is heartless. Like it's not a city that has culture really. It has experiences, but not necessarily, you know, you can't go and see a castle.
There's just a shady side to it as well.
I guess so. Yeah, there is. I mean, there's a shady side to everything, but yeah, there is a bit of a shady side. But it means we can go and spend it with friends, right? And we can hang it with them, and we can go and do some stuff with the kids, and just have fun. And we're also going to do like 2 or 3 days in a nice hotel, you know, with a kiddie area thing, and just have a little bit of a family holiday. So, because of the benefit of staying with friends, we also get the benefit of potentially spending a bit more on, say, a fancier hotel. So we get a nicer adult experience, and then Olivia gets we get a nice family thing. So that's cool. That's really looking forward. I think Laura's super excited about that because we haven't really been on holiday because the past 2 years we've basically been trying to spend all our money on glazing and bricks
adult
and shit.
Just surviving the 30s, like the last episode.
Just surviving. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of it, really, Neil. Not
Nice.
much else to report. The funny thing is, we're about to jump into the sort of the main part of this this episode. The first two are. I have a question for you. How many women are on your list?
Oh wow. It's bad. Yeah.
It's bad, isn't it? Wait, is it bad? Like, is it bad? That's a question. Like, is it bad? Like, if you're absorbing content, which is, I say content in terms of books, blogs, internet articles, YouTube, podcasts, music, like all those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason
do you think?
I mean, you could argue that the Diary of a CEO, for example, I listened to the female interviewer. The people that get interviewed are often female. Huberman, Rick Roll, and that kind of thing. But I think for me, the majority of men is because I think naturally, if we want to learn something, we're probably going to want to learn from the same sex. Don't know if that's a thing, but yeah, if we're more I feel like I'm more likely to listen to a male podcaster, because I don't know, I want to improve myself, and I feel like I can improve myself more from him than from a woman. Maybe that's naive. Yeah,
I think it's understanding, right?
Yeah, a male's been through a male's life, like I'm going through a male's life.
Because you could dissect that even further, right? Like you can dissect it even further in the sense that a man's probably more likely to understand a man's issues. Someone from Scotland is probably more likely to understand someone from Scotland's issues. Someone from Aberdeen is more likely to understand someone from Aberdeen's issues. Someone from Inverurie is more likely to understand someone from Inverurie. A farmer from Inverurie is, you see what I'm going at. So I think, I was just quite curious. I kind of looked at it and thought, could I diversify my thoughts and feelings on certain things and broaden horizons? Certainly. So yeah, if anyone's listening to this podcast and they have any sort of resources that I perhaps haven't tapped into, then by all means, like, stick it in the comments on Instagram or say hello on YouTube.
Do you think there's
whatever.
something though that the kind of top 50 podcasts of the world? I don't know. I wonder how many are male hosts. Is it the majority? Because are females less likely to put themselves out there? Yeah, like there could be something.
Well, it's platform dependent. So, for example, YouTube is largely male dominated, but Instagram's top 10 earners are, I think, 9 out of 10 of them are female. So that's worth considering. Top podcasts. I don't even know. I'm trying to look at podcast charts and rankings.
I think it might be like you might have to look at Apple Podcasts or Spotify Pacific. I don't know if there'd be a global one.
Yeah, so I've got a website here. Number 1 is a female. Top Apple podcast is Just Be by Bethany Frankie. Number 2 is Dear Alana. Number 3 is Scamanda. So
maybe it's just our narrow-mindedness.
And maybe. And then there's Spotify is Rogan. Then Huberman. And then it's Emma Chamberlain, which is number 4. Then another male.
It's like it seems like there's a mix.
Yeah, so it seems to be quite spread actually. Yeah, so the top 3 on Apple Podcasts is female. The top 3 is 2 males and a female. But yeah, it seems to be quite spread.
Yeah, maybe it's on us.
Yeah. But yeah, Instagram. Anyway, we're going off on a chart. But yeah, Instagram's definitely dominated by females. YouTube is definitely dominated by males. So yeah, I guess it's just it's choice, right? It's consumer choice. You can choose whatever you want to listen to and whatever you want to watch. So But yeah, the other one I was quite interested in as well as I was doing this is how I use each platform for different reasons. So it's either entertainment or education.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you have differences in terms of like whether you use a podcast for entertainment or education. Do you use books for either? Do you use YouTube for either? Do you use
so I think
Instagram for either?
Most of my mix we've split it into the same kind of categories: podcast, books, YouTube, Instagram, and I think YouTube and Instagram are more entertainment. And for me, books and podcasts are educational. But then YouTube's got a bit of an education to it with the people I watch on a regular basis. So yeah, Instagram's probably the only one where I don't tend to take anything from educationally. It's more of a entertainment side. What about you?
Yeah, I think Instagram probably the same. You know, I don't tend to use it as an education platform. Like, it's not something I learn from. There's a bit of entertainment. Yeah. It's more social, I think, probably from that perspective. YouTube I use for both. Like, I use it both from an entertainment perspective and an education perspective. Like, there are channels that have an edutainment kind of edge to it. You know, it's talking about cars or cooking or something like that, but there's an entertainment sort of edge to it, like more of a reporting sort of thing. But most of it, yeah, is... and in podcasts, I do a mixture of both. So it's either going to be education or there's some entertainment aspects of things, but then it usually sort of falls around some facts or something a bit more factual necessarily than, say, fictional. Like, I'm not listening to a murder mystery on podcasts or a comedy sort of thing.
So how will we do this? Will we just read out a podcast and then pick a couple to dive into? So my podcast, similar to Gordon's, a couple of them, but Diary of a CEO, been an avid listener since Steve actually started it when he was kind of building up the social chain enterprise. So not even when I had guests on it, it was just him in a cupboard. Huberman, science-based one. I quite enjoy it. So some of the podcasts I don't listen to all because they're like 3-4 hours long on why you shouldn't drink alcohol. And I'm not that interested in that kind of thing, but yeah.
I like being an alcoholic and leave me alone.
But interestingly on that one, so my father-in-law, I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this, but he used to, I'd say, consume a couple of ciders a night or half a bottle of wine a night on a regular basis. And it was just, it was kind of in his routine. He'd get home from work, make his dinner, pour a glass of wine, and that'd be it. He wouldn't carry on doing it. But he'd do it every night. And he listened to the podcast of Andrew Huberman did it on alcohol. And he's basically, I think it's over a year now, he's just totally cut out. Like, he probably did that kind of half a bottle of wine a day, I don't know, for 15, 20 years. And now he's totally gone cold turkey and is not drinking at all. So yeah, it just shows you that can have a big impact. And he's more looking at it like he's had his fun with alcohol and he's now at an age, he's probably in his late 50s, 60s, that it probably is going to affect him a bit, and it might help him. But anyway, that's one. Rich Roll, again, interviews some interesting people. He's done a lot with his life, ex-alcoholic on that theme, but went on to run ultras and become world champion at a lot of these. Against All Odds is probably one that's not really kind of interview focused. It's all about kind of big moments in history and recreated to be in a podcast. So, for example, there's a big disaster on the K2, which is one of the most dangerous mountains in the world to climb, and they reenacted the climb and like everyone getting ready for it. They also reenacted the Thailand caves when a bunch of school kids got stuck. There, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's quite an interesting one where you just want to think out. Lex Fridman, again, big interviewer. He does a really good podcast with Elon Musk. He's now had Elon Musk on the podcast 3 times, which is mad. And Mark Zuckerberg's on there. It's good. And then Nick Bear, who's a fitness guy. Kind of, you probably heard of Nick Bear, have you? Yeah, he's kind of set a supplement company up and yeah, does cool fitness stuff. That's my podcast. My all-time favourite, I would say, I didn't put Tim Ferriss. OG. Tim Ferriss is probably my favourite. Yeah.
Fair. Good list. Strong list. I've never listened to Against All Odds. I've kind of delved into some of them. Huberman's good, but I've kind of been starting to be turned off by him, because it's kind of the things people don't need to worry about is whether or not they've had sunlight in the first 20 minutes of waking.
He's kind of jumped on that bandwagon.
Like whether or not your caffeine receptors are optimized for the first 2 hours of waking, so you shouldn't drink any coffee or whatever else. Like, there's also evidence against that. Like there's evidence to suggest that if you have a coffee, it actually offsets the grogginess that you get from training early morning. So having caffeine in the morning is probably a good idea if you are training early, because it offsets that kind of circadian rhythm issue where you're feeling a little bit groggy. So it's stuff like that, and I kind of just get a bit turned off with it because he's just sometimes.
And he started being sponsored by Athletic Greens as well. Which,
I get all that shit, right? I'm like, bruv, because I won't get into it anyway. Diary CEO is good. I kind of, the only thing with Diary CEO is if it's a guest that I think is going to be quite interesting, then I'll listen to it. But it's kind of, I don't like watching American TV. And his intros are kind of like,
the world's going to end. AI is going to kill us all.
You know, I found we're all going to die. Oh my God, really?
This has changed my life. This episode.
You know, I'm not.
He says that a lot.
Yeah, all that kind of shit. It's a bit much. It's a bit PR-y, kind of Americanized, and it's slightly put me off more. I think I actually prefer the kind of casual conversation-y type of thing with what's his name? The
Tim
OG.
Ferriss.
The big guy. What's his name?
Joe Rogan.
No, the other one.
Yeah, he's managed
Joe
to keep
Rogan,
his
quite like the kind of casual conversational. Yeah, he's not fucked with the strategy, right? And it works. So, but again, I dip and dive into his because they're quite long, right? It's 2 or 3 hours, and I don't have that time to commit to it. That's why I think our podcast being about 50 minutes seems to be a decent sweet spot where it's going to slot into someone's day potentially. I think actually half an hour to 45 minutes is probably a better route. Lex Fridman, again, another one. Like, I like I've listened to like some of the Mr. Beast interviews. He interviews well. Again, quite a casual conversation. There's no kind of fireworks going on. But it's long. Yeah, it's really long. Nick Baer, I've not listened to. The ones that I'd probably add to that is Modern Wisdom. I only really listen to the ones where it's either an interesting topic that I'm quite curious about and I'll enter into, or it's a big guest. So it's someone that's kind of, I'm quite curious about listening to their story and who they are and what they've been up to and yada yada. Again, good podcast, kept the format really well, interesting conversation, high quality as well, which I think is, the more I listen to podcasts, the less tolerance I have for bad audio.
There's a lot of tech podcasts in the Edinburgh area and Scotland area kind of that are popping up, and some of the guests are really interesting, like really innovative tech people, but they're on Zoom calls with AirPod microphones, and I can't listen to it.
It's bad. Especially when you've listened to someone like Modern Wisdom's levels of quality. Certainly when it's in person, or Diary of a CEO, you then realize like just how friggin' bad it is, and I can't listen to it. So that's kind of an important one for me. I listen to a podcast called Colin and Samir. They're YouTubers who comment on the creative economy. So looking at kind of sponsorships and interviewing YouTubers and big YouTubers about certain things. And I find their interviewing style very good, very casual. They've added an intro, but I think it's subtle enough that it's not kind of, you're not setting off £1 million worth of fireworks in your ears. So they've done well with that. They have some interesting guests. And again, it's an interest of mine right now. So they're kind of leading the way on that conversation about YouTube and the creator economy and all that kind of thing. Another one's a financial podcast called the Iced Coffee Hour. I've not listened to it much recently, but I don't think he's been running many episodes. I really, again, high quality. I really enjoy the casual conversation. It's not too long. It's a good conversation with good guests, always in person, which I actually love the in-person ones. Certainly more than I like the recorded versions, and you can kind of tell, even if you're listening on a podcast way. But it's very good financial advice sort of stuff, like business, entrepreneur stuff. Diary of a CEO, like I said, I kind of dip into that. And then, because now I'm a Fulham fan, I listen to the Fulhamish podcast. I just like some of their analysis of some of the games and stuff like that, and then some of like the thoughts and feelings. I also just like the kind of bootstrappy, kid in a bedroom kind of podcast thing where they have a high quality sort of podcast set up, and they've just done it really, really well, where they obviously started it. It's an unofficial Fulham podcast, and it's a bunch of lads just talking about Fulham. and it's just really good. And they've done. I went to a live event when they do a live Fulhamish podcast, and that was fantastic because you got to kind of watch them in full flow, and it feels like something like we're doing, and
Nice.
that was great.
Yeah, most of them I've heard of, but Iced Coffee Hour sounds pretty interesting. Colin and Samir, I've only ever tuned in on like guests they have that I know about. Like the recent ones, Ali Abdaal was on it, I think, on YouTube. That I watched briefly.
You just want juicy gossip, see if we talk about me.
But like
we should do a podcast. We should do like a revealing all of the experience of working for Ali Abdaal, and then that would probably get some views off the back of those types of interviews.
But one tip I would give is if it's a long episode, I put it on 1.5 times. And at the start, it sounds like I can't listen to this. It's just too fast. But your brain kind of, I don't know, slows things down, or you suddenly be able to kind of tune in. So most of the episodes I listen to on a run would be 1.5 times. So I can get through a couple hour episode pretty quick. Let's move on to books next. So I kind of dip in and out of books.
Hold on. Well, I want the audience, anyone listening to this podcast who's a regular listener, right? So anyone who's got through most of our episodes, I'd like you to just guess in your head right now what Neil's about to say on his book list. Let's just take a minute to think. What book will Neil talk about?
Have you thought about it? Is it in your head? Remember it? So yeah, I've read lots of books, and I could go down the. I guess I took the view on this podcast of like, what do I consume regularly? So there is books I could recommend. People I read, and yeah, my bookshelf is full. But the ones I kind of dip in every day, pretty much, because there's daily in the sign, are Daily Stoic and Daily Dad. So they're by Ryan Holiday. Bit of a fanboy.
I actually have a book sat right here.
Stillness is the Key. So like, I've read that, and I've read his other ones, but yeah, I was taking it from like what do I do on a consume content on a daily basis. So yeah, those two. I have the Kindle version on my phone, so I can just read it in the train, or I have the nice signed copy from Gordon. He got me a gift with Daily Dad. That's on my desk, and I've got the Daily Stoic on my desk as well. So they're all kind of around, easily accessible, and just some nice food for thought, some nice things to think about over the day. It's wholesome content, and I like it.
It's a strong it's a strong book just to pick up, because there's not many books. Like a lot of books. One thing I read recently was Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss did a Instagram carousel or something, where he was like, if it's a bad movie or book, you don't have to finish it.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like I go through this sunk cost fallacy issue of like reading a book and thinking I've got to finish it, and I'm like, no, you don't. If you're not enjoying it, just fucking put it down. Gone. But with this one, because they are just meant to be 366 or 365 days worth of like things, then you can just pick it up on the date that you want to, and you can just read that one pager, and it's really I quite like that. That's a nice little stylistic thing to do, especially within the busy environments that we have now. Like the time to sit and read
exactly.
a book.
If you can do one page a day or 2 pages a day, then
that's also true. And I could probably not look at my phone before I go to bed. I could probably read my book, right? No one is surprised that you said that.
But as I say, like I'm reading a fantasy book just now by, I can't remember the author's name. It's cool. It's like people living on the moon and how the world's kind of built and stuff. So yeah, like I do dip in and out of other books, but those are the two main drivers of my week.
Nice. I wrote down a few. Authors. One is a guy called Derek Sivers. I quite like his sort of short, his sort of one-page, chaptery type style, and they're kind of in the self-development realm, from entrepreneurship to life development, personal development, if you will. And I just really like the way he writes. I think he's very thought-provoking. I think he's very interesting. It's very short. He has a writing style where if it doesn't need to be there, he gets rid of it. So they're not like long, convoluted types of conversations or stories. They're just kind of pretty much one-pagers. And yeah, I really like his writing style. And I like to listen to him as a guest as well on podcasts. So anyone who fancies it, they're very, very good. I think I have a book actually over there.
I think I actually got an audio book of his. And it didn't fit audiobook format, I don't think. I can't remember which one it was.
This was one called Hell Yeah or No. Was one that I read. And then the other one was Anything You Want. Both excellent books, excellent reads, like really, really good. And he's also self-published. Like there's no kind of intermediary or whatnot. You're kind of buying from him, funding his life, which feels pretty good because a lot of authors actually get paid up front to write the book, and then they write the book and they actually don't get paid until they've paid off that upfront thing. So he's very good. Mark Manson, multi-million copy selling author. What's the book called again?
The Subtle Art. Yeah.
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Fantastic. Great book. He's also got a fantastic Instagram page. I think he's just a really interesting person to read about, to listen.
I haven't watched it yet, but there's a Netflix movie.
Would recommend him to everyone. I've watched it, yeah. It's a bit about his life, really, to be honest. It's good. It's good, and I can see why. So his pursuit now is basically video. He is heavily investing into YouTube and that platform because that's pretty much what he doesn't do now. He doesn't write as much as he does now. He makes YouTube videos. Then the last one for me is a guy called Will Storr. He wrote a book called Selfie and The Status Game. The first one's about the evolution of social media, essentially, where it's come from way back, like the philosophies of the East and the West, and how it's kind of risen into what it is now. And the other one is The Status Game, so it's kind of looking at essentially why we buy the things and why we do the things that we do. And pretty much all of it's driven by status of some kind. So he writes really well. He's really interesting, well-researched, that kind of thing. And I didn't actually write down one. I know a guy called, two actually that I didn't write down. There's quite a lot. One is a guy called Douglas Murray. I find him really fascinating. He writes about political issues. He writes about gender, homosexuality, transgender. He talks about politics. He speaks really eloquently and interesting and has some, fascinating points about certain things. And then Jordan Peterson, I think he's a good talisman for the masculinity movement.
He's got a bit of a Marmite feel to him. Either love him or hate him. He's got a mixed following. Yeah. What,
Jordan Peterson? Why would you hate him?
I mean, I'm in the love him camp, but it's just his views are quite strong, especially about religion and
are they
that kind of thing. Yeah, am I talking about the same person? Let me quickly Google him. I'm sure it's
Jordan Peterson, as in the 12 Rules of Life.
Get him up. Yeah, it's him. Yeah, he does.
He's quite strong views about religion.
I was listening to a podcast about a guy. He was on. Butchered it. He came off Twitter. You'll know his name, but I can't remember his name. Sam something. Sam. It's gone. No, he's not a singer. He's a prolific. He's kind of like Sam Harris.
Sam Harris.
He's kind of like a prolific, philosopher guy. And anyway, his views on religion really can coincide with Jordan Peterson's, and it's quite an interesting topic on the podcast.
They don't coincide. I mean. They're conflicting.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know much about his religious stuff, but I just think his campaigning against campaigning against the one-sided argument that there is, say, patriarchy, for example. That men are largely in control, that kind of thing, and just the fact that he kind of came out and spoke about it and said, no, that's actually not correct. And I think that's fair, and I think that speaks to a lot of young men out there that aren't in control, that don't have, and that's the majority of men, right? It's a very small subsection of men that control the FTSE 100 companies. There's, men aren't necessarily, like the most disadvantaged youths in this country are young boys in Scotland, young white boys in Scotland. They're the least likely to go to university. The most impoverished individuals. So, it's things like that. Anyway, he's good. I quite liked reading his books, and the first chapter of the first rule of his 12 Rules of Life is like make your bed.
Set yourself up for success.
set yourself up for success, and if you're going to go out and campaign against world issues and things, and you haven't made your bed,
Go home.
what are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, next ones. Books.
Yeah,
YouTube.
so I'm not really into it as much. I used to be a massive YouTube fan, and I don't know, it's consumed for maybe an hour or two a day of like the Casey Neistats and the Matt Deavaila and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've gone off it a little bit. I just don't know why. Maybe it's lack of time or lack of interest.
Is it because of the creators? Like the creators have kind of fallen off that you enjoyed watching?
And I haven't found something to kind of fill that again. So Fergus Crawley and Nick Bear. So Fergus Crawley is an Edinburgh athlete. He's done a lot of endurance stuff, some crazy endurance stuff. He's kind of like the Scottish Nick Bear, if you know who Nick Bear is. He does have some incredible content, like the visuals and the quality is just really up there. So he's still trying to find his feet though. He's only got like 50,000 subscribers, so he's still trying to have, gain. But he puts out some good videos. And then Nick Bear, as I mentioned, like his podcast, he does some really good videos, high quality again. Seems to have a video production crew behind him every day. But yeah, I kind of tune into those occasionally.
Yeah, I probably consume most of my media content is via YouTube because it's the world I work in, I guess, to some degree. But there's kind of there's the Casey Neistats that kind of started it, the Matt Deavailas. And Casey Neistat was entertainment, right? It wasn't necessarily education. It was very much entertainment. There is Matt Deavailas was a bit of education, but also a bit of entertainment, like an education, an edutainment type of channel, because he was a filmmaker and then decided to start making YouTube videos. Peter Mckinnon was all education to begin with and just learning all about editing. Like I kind of attest a lot of his early stuff kind of helped me basically become the videographer, creative person I am now. I think give me the skills to be able to do it, or help me along with the skills. And then I watch a car channel quite a lot called Shmee 150
years ago,
and he's
still going.
Yeah, he's still churning. Churns multiple videos a week, and I think I like him as an individual. He's kind of a bit geeky, a bit weird, but presents really well, knows all the facts about the cars, really loves cars, like just all about them and what he does. And yeah, I just find it a really fascinating person to watch. And he's kind of, all the YouTube money he's made, he's bought some pretty unbelievable cars. And certainly just the experiences he goes through is really, it's a really good channel. It's really fun. And I really like it. And I just like YouTube across the board because it's very much I can choose what I want, and there's just so much content that you can potentially consume if you want to. And it's good for me to keep on top of like what people are doing and how they're doing it and what the editing aspects of things are and just all that juice. Nice. So big fan of YouTube.
Next one, Instagram. I kind of go in and out of following like famous people and not following famous people and like interacting with them and stuff. Right now I'm kind of just most of Instagram is my friends and what they're up to. But there's one guy I came across. He lives down in England somewhere. He's called one.life.truck.it, and he's got a fascinating story. So basically, he owned his own joinery company. He's now sold it or handed it over to a co-owner. He was about to get married, but his wife his wife-to-be left him. So he's in a bit of a rut. Anyway, he bought this massive MAN truck, which is the one you see like pulling the kind of Amazon warehouse shops and the Tesco deliveries and stuff. Massive truck, and put a container on the back of it. And he's making it like camper van type style, but off-road, massive thing. And he's going to drive from England to Australia with his dog. He's my age, and yeah, he's kind of going all in. He sold his house, sold his caravan, sold his business. He's kind of making everyone aware that he has got cash in the bank to do this, and like he's not just some crazy guy. He's doing it pretty legitimately. But yeah, I just quite like that. He's just kind of said fuck you to the kind of conventional life of getting married, and he's now got I started following him when he was 15,000 followers. Now he's got 150,000. So he's grown the social platform pretty big, and yeah, it's just really good content. Like I don't know if he's been trained or going from a joiner to what he's creating in terms of the drone footage and the walkthroughs of his van. It's pretty cool. So yeah, if you're interested in like, I don't know, adventure life, I think he's due to set off end of September from England to Australia. So
wow. I mean, it's one way to not
just
think
do
about
it.
stuff, right? Well, yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, he's obviously had a terrible situation happen to him.
Cover it up.
And if you go on a crusade or a pilgrimage, you can potentially find yourself on the road. But what happens when it's done? I guess kind of that's the fear. Like I try not to do things. I try not to, and I'm guilty of it a lot. But I think I try not to do things, or I'm aware of doing things, or trying to be aware of doing things that are emotionally driven.
Yeah.
Rather than things that are from a place of like, I'm already happy. Like, I'm already a happy person. I'm already delighted. It's great.
Yeah.
What do I want to do now? Rather than, I'm sad as fuck, so what I'm going to do
Sell
is
my house.
build a truck and then drive it to Australia. Sell all my stuff. Just sell it all. Get rid of it. Sell it all. So, I don't know. All best of luck to him. But I guess I'm kind of commenting on it from my perspective is just, I feel like if you make a decision from a place of happiness, there's perhaps less it can impact you down the road, maybe. Don't know. One for me is actually a recent discovery. I was listening to the Modern Wisdom podcast from Chris Williamson. And there was I think his name's George. I'm going to get this right because it's important. But I started following him on Instagram. And he is just he's a leftist male advocate. And he very much likes presenting data, which is something I quite enjoy, and then doing it as sort of Instagram carousels and sort of discussing essentially maleism, if that's what it is. And he does it so eloquently. Like, he does it so, like, it's data driven. It has thoughts and feelings about certain things going on, challenging the current status quo. And I guess I like that some level of feeling of rebelliousness, going against what's currently being said, and then presenting it and saying, look, well, this is actually what's happening.
I really enjoyed it. I think it came across as like things you might enjoy or something, or you maybe shared something on your Instagram story.
Men die. That's what I shared. Like, so that's a very good example actually of something that I found fascinating in that. So 100, I think for every 100 females that are born, 105 men are born. So what you'd expect down the line as men get older, you just expect more men, right? That's not the case. There's more women on this planet than there are men. And that tells us that men are dying. Like, so why are they dying? And it's kind of mapped out to some degrees of the 15 reasons for death in the US, 11 of those reasons are topped by men.
Which is mad.
Like 3/4. Things like that. So it means that we are basically killing ourselves to becoming a minority. There's more women on this planet. So it's kind of, there's things like that where it's just not seen in mainstream media, right? It's not talked about. There is, and that's really, like, I was sorry, I'm about to go off on a rant. I was reading the news yesterday on the BBC News, on the front fucking page, Britney Spears has divorced so-and-so. Sorry? Like, I think in a year, like 172 men or something around that died from male-on-male violence in the UK.
Yeah, I know. Like,
that's like every 2 days, another man has killed another man. So it's probably quite easy to do a front page report on someone getting stabbed and killed. But yet you choose Britney Spears has got a divorce. You're having a giraffe.
And another stark one for me when the Tin Men shared was the whole situation in Ukraine with men. If you're between the fighting age of 16 or 18 and 60, then if you leave the country, you will be shot and killed, essentially. So you're stuck in the country.
Well, yeah, that's kind of extreme. There's reports of that happening. Like, they're kind of fleeing the mountains and stuff. And then, it's just a classic thing back in World War II and I, when there was conscription where you had to go and fight. You were put in jail. If you were a man of fighting age and you didn't go to the front line, you were put in jail and you were shamed by the
And
community.
that's what's happening in 2023 in Ukraine, which I just find that mad. And that was nowhere on the BBC, nowhere on the news. I'd never heard it before. The Ukraine war's been going on over a year now, and it wasn't until the Thetinmen shared it.
Yep. So that's definitely an Instagram page that I quite enjoy. Just because it's talking about things that are important to me, I guess, to some extent. Everything else is basically just some mates or me trying to drum up business. So like, I'll follow people to make some dollars. Instagram I don't really use as a personal platform. I've got it for my 35mm photography stuff because weird part of me feels like it's wasted if I don't publish it. And the only platform really to publish it is Instagram.
I get that. I try, like, I make sure that Rebecca and I share like a photo album on our phones, so all our photos go to the cloud and we can see them on our phone and stuff. And I try and share my photos, I don't know, to friends and family as much as I can, just so they're not wasted. But I do see what you mean. Like, I've got 20,000 photos in the cloud, and when I die, what's going to happen to them?
And there's only so many you can print and hang up. You know, so I find that is quite nice. I quite like putting it up there just because, first of all, I want people to tell me how cute my daughter is. Second one is I want to tell people how great I am as a photographer. And then the third one is I don't want it to go to waste because it's cost me at least nearly £1 every time I hit the share button. Yeah. But here we are. Anyway, that is episode number 87 of the Developing Dads podcast. Unless Neil's got anything more profound to say for the rest of the episode. He's shaking his head. Thanks very much for listening. For the 3.5 listeners that have got to this point, we're churning an average of 30 listens a pod, Neil, which is, you know, we're at the scary heights of, you know, one of them. Like, I'm just waiting actually for one of them to hit 40. You know, I don't think I've seen a 40 outside of like our first episode or a special guest episode coming into our viewership, or listenership. So yeah, if we can hit a 40 on one of them, it'd be quite nice. But either way, thanks for listening. We are, of course, on YouTube, where you can watch us eventually. I upload them, but they're unlisted. You can see Neil's incredible Reels creation. Neil's Reels. That's what we call it, Neil. Neil's Reels. You can get Neil's Reels on demand as he posts them on our Instagram page, Developing Dads. You can comment there, let us know what you think. You give us a 5-star review on Spotify. If you like our little episodes and what we chat about and what we go through, then by all means, have a little listen to them. If there's anyone that we should have added to our list, let us know. If we're missing quite a lot of female representation on it. So by all means, let us know what we should have. But as always, thanks so much for listening, and we shall see you, or listen to you, or hear you, or whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. We'll see you or listen to you on the next episode.